A very warm welcome to this first Vigos webinar in English. I hope you guys can hear me and understand me okay. There is a tool called Raise Hands. Can maybe a few of you guys just raise your hands if you can see a picture and if you can also hear my voice? Yes, that's great. Thank you. Perfect. If something changes during the webinar, so if you maybe, or if I lose you or you lose my voice or picture or the display, please just write it inside the chat. If you have any questions related to the presentation we see or to the things I tell you, please type them into the Q&A tool, because then maybe also other people can see the questions you wrote and also the according the answer or the answer to it. All right. So my name is Wolfgang Burgstaller. I'm a lead of product management and customer support at BlueSky Energy. And the Vigos is one of our products. I hope you have heard from it, or I guess you have heard from it. So I'm more or less the main contact person if you have some support questions when you are in the field or when you would like to know something beforehand. So when you install or set up a system. And yeah, that's what I'm mainly here for at BlueSky. We are also accessible or connectable or contact-able. We're a ticket tool. So there is also an engineering team or a support team which can help you with the following contact details. So I hope you can also see my mouse. So with support at bluesky-energy.eu, you will receive a ticket number and we will answer that ticket as fast as possible. And if you call this number, you will get directly contacted from a technician, or you will get contacted to a technician. If you have some questions regarding sales, please contact our two international salespeople, Brigitte Ritzer or Thomas Kraus. I guess you have heard from one or both of them. So, and they're also available with their own email address. And if you have general sales questions, you can also directly tell them or ask them at sales@bluesky-energy.eu. So I hope you already know who BlueSky is, what Vigos is, what maybe was also GreenRock is. If no, so if you never heard something about BlueSky before, please just write it shortly into the chat so that I can just give you a few feedback, or I guess you have already visited the first webinar made or led by Thomas Kraus, so we already should have get the information of the company and how we developed, more or less. So today you're gonna get a bit more technical insight into the CarboCap technology, or mainly on our products with this CarboCap technology. So the Vigos is our outdoor power storage system. And then we have also the Cell 3050, which is our indoor residential CarboCap battery. So we will jump a bit from two of them. So one information will be more focused on the first system and a few information will be focused on the cell, but you will see that on the slides itself. I think that should not be a big deal. So Vigos, the outdoor power storage, I won't add too much there. Just will give you a first better insight into the system. So hopefully you're not confused if I don't look directly into the camera. I have my presentation here on the left side. So hopefully that is okay with you. Good, so the Vigos system. In the middle here, you can see a prefabricated connection box. And inside this connection box, you already have a battery inverter charger, so for 48 volts, which is able to charge and discharge, so bidirectional. We have the whole thing pre-wired, so you also have a Vigos EMS and an energy management system mounted there. You have screw-free AC in and AC out connection points, so where you have the grid connection and the connection to the load. And we have an optional device or unit, which is called DC connection set or DC PV coupling. So if you also want to add PV modules directly to the system, you can do that, but you need this optional additional device. Good, and also please don't be confused about the room which you see here. This is now my home office, so not the official office at BlueSky in Frankenberg. It's just, yeah, because of the actual situation worldwide, we have sometimes a bit more regulations, and this regulations now tells me I have to stay at home for at least the 23rd December. So on the left and on the right side of this connection box, you can add a battery module. You can also add 2 on the right side or 2 on the left side or 4 in total. So up to 4 battery modules can be connected to the connection box, which makes in total 96 kilowatt hour on capacity available. So if you want the biggest Vigos system, you will then have 4 battery modules and you will reach up to 96 kilowatt hours. In one battery module, you can place up to 12 units of a CarboCap module. So you can just count it here as you see. And each CarboCap module is a 2 kilowatt hour storage with 22 lithium titan oxide cells. So LTO cells are more or less the description for a CarboCap technology. It's just a bit of a different name. So the other product which we made out of this technology is the cell 3050. So this is a smaller system, but also has the same, let's say, main settings available. So we have a pre-assembled connection box where an inverter and charger is placed inside. We have a so-called DC combiner with toolless battery connections where you can connect up to 10 pieces of this module. So with each 2 kilowatt hours. So in here in the picture, you see 5 modules standing in this rack. One module, same with Vigos, has 2 kilowatt hours in capacity and up to 2 kilowatts on power, depending on the system size. So really depending on the inverter charger which is in use, you have a different power available from this CarboCap modules. Inside the frame, so inside the connection box, you again have toolless AC in and AC out connections, so where you can connect your grid connection and the connection to loads. And also in the cell, you can add a DC connection set where you can then connect, again, a DC coupled PV directly to the DC side of the system. So we will go through the DC coupling a bit more in detail a bit later, but just did you get the first insights? Good, the battery module CarboCap. So as already said, this module, which you can also see here in the picture, is made out of 22 lithium titanate oxide cell. So 22 cells, which give us 40 amp hours on capacity and around 2.0 kilowatt hours on storable energy. The cell is really a long life cycle battery. So it has high cycle stability up to 20,000 cycles. And here in the cycles, we mean full cycles. So really use 100% out of the cell. And also one really nice thing is the high temperature range. So it goes from -30 up to +50 degrees Celsius. So that means you can also, for example, the Vigos can be placed inside this temperature ranges. The cell, as I already said, is an only indoor system. And why do we call it CarboCap? So this more or less stands for the high CO2 reduction you can fulfill with this long-lasting LTO cell. So that's just a different name. So the cell is, as you can see, long, durable, but it's also a safe battery. So it's the safest lithium technology available. We also did an UL fire burn test where the cell was held for 30 minutes above an open flame. So we had temperatures up to 150 degrees there directly at the cell. And for more than 30 minutes, nothing happened to the cell. So no explosion, no extreme heat up or whatever. So you can also do the nail penetration test into the cell and nothing will happen. And that's because of the titanium on the cathode of the cell. So with this titanium, the lithium cell is not able to do what it's used to do with different materials. So there is no damage which can occur because of the titanium. So this battery module is a 48-volt battery module already written with the cell 3050. That means we have 2.0 kilowatt hour capacity and more or less up to 2.7 kilowatt hour charge discharge power. So that's the maximum power which you can get depending on the system size. So when you have a lower system with a lower inverter power, you won't be able to get that discharge charge power from one module. But yeah, you will see that in the technical data sheet. One module, so placed here, has a weight of 40 kilograms, and you already spoke about that 20,000 cycles at 100% DOD. So that's the main information about the battery I can give. And here I have, so the battery Wechselrichter, it should be translated to battery inverter. So in the system, we use Victron Energy Multiplus 2 inverters. And yeah, depending on the system, we use them 1 or 3 times or even 6 times at the bigger Vigos system. So inside, yeah, the system we have this different units or numbers of battery inverters, and a 3-phase system is realized by using 3 identical devices. And with the 3 identical devices, we reach or fulfill 100% 3-phase rotating field and 120 degrees phase shift. And 100% unbalanced load capability also in off-grid mode. So also only one phase can be loaded with a full power. So with this inverter, I don't know, maybe you've heard already from them. So you really have the different possibilities. You can do self-consumption optimization. You can have emergency power. You can also on a optional side, you can have island and off-grid system. You can do AC and DC coupled PV, and you can do connection of emergency power generators and much more. So that's our device, which is transferring the current and the voltage. And then we have an energy management system, so a Vigos EMS, which is doing the visualization and data evaluation of the system. It's also available online. We're a free portal. It also does plant monitoring of PV inverters of one manufacturer. So you can choose out of many different manufacturers, but it's only capable to do one manufacturer per time. So if you have different inverter brands, you maybe have to add an energy meter to also be able to visualize the power inside the EMS. It's not needed that you visualize it for the function of the whole system, but it's just better to have a full data mining available, more or less. So inside this EMS, you can also do an active PV control where fixed or dynamic settings. I don't know if you know about the regulations in Germany, because in there they have to make sure that, for example, a 10 kilowatt peak PV system will never fit in more than 7 kilowatts, for example. So they have some special regulations there. And for this, we have this function available in the EMS. So this picture, you can see it does not fit very well. So this is basically our EMS for the Green Rock. And the visualization for the Vigos is just not fully finished right now. So that's why I just took the one for Green Rock and added the Vigos label to it. So it will look quite the same way. So it is planted with one view, with one eye view. You can see all the main things which are going on right now at your system. So then we already get to the first option, the PV DC coupling. So this is an optional function. The hard piece of this is the PV charge controller. So the Victron Smart Solar MPPT RS charge controller is a DC-DC charger, and a DC coupling for us means a PV field which is directly connected to the DC distribution inside the Vigos system. So inside this DC charger, you have two MPP tracker without a DC-AC inverter. So it's only a DC-DC voltage reduction, and the DC-AC is done from the battery inverter, so from the multi+2 devices. So the DC-AC transformation, as you can read here. This DC-DC charge controller has a maximum open circuit voltage of 450. Sorry again for the next failure. So there should be written 450 and not 250. So it's 450 volts input voltage. You have two MPPTs with 18 amps each tracker and a total power, so for two trackers, of 2.7 kilowatts. So in total, 5.7 kilowatts. So that means one tracker, for example, with 2.7 and the other with 3 kilowatts. So in total then the 5.7. This charger can be mounted inside the Vigos housing or outside of the Cell 3050 housing. And if you order this option, you get the charger, which you can see here, a wiring fusing from the charger to the Vigos. And inside this charger, then you have this through connection for your PV panels. So inside here, you can just remove this black housing part here, and then you have this two MPPT connections available. So here you would finally have the correct value, so you can realize different string sizes, and the maximum OCV, so maximum open circuit voltage, is 450 volt DC, and the minimum is 65. So please be aware of this value. That means most of the time you can a maximum place 10 panels in serial, depending on your panel choice. And if you have already your defined panel, you can choose or use our string calculator tool. It's an Excel tool where you can fill in the data of your panel, so of your model, of your PV panels. And the string calculator then tells you if your planned configuration is usable or not. So you can fill in how many system or models you have in serial, how many you have parallel. And on the second slide of this tool, you can add the data of your used panel. Good, so a Vigos can be placed outside, but please right now as in a protected location. So especially protected from the sun. This is the only regulation you have right now. And the specifications right now are done for systems with for 2 meters above sea level. So that's the specification right now. Temperature range goes from -30 to +50. We have a protection type of IP45, so really high standard already. The weight, depending on the system size, on the battery, the carbo cap modules, it goes from 715 to 2,120 kilograms. And the needed space also here depends how much battery modules you have. So the smallest size is 2.4 meters and goes up to 4.8 meters. And then times 860 millimeters in depth and 1.6 meters in height. So depending on the battery models. So the Vigos outdoor storage system is a 3-phase system starting at 18 kilowatt hours and goes up to 96 kilowatt hours. The power availability is 24 or 48. This depends on the connection box you're choosing. The standard function is grid parallel in a self-consumption optimization function. You have an emergency and island off-grid functionality always integrated as a standard function. But you have to cable it in the correct way to also have this function available. And you also can add AC PV on the emergency connection. So also AC PV can stay active with the Vigos. And the grid disconnection point is also certificated, for example, for the VDI 4105 for Germany, with the regulation there, or for TOR, this is the regulations for the regulation for Austria, and there are already many more. You will see them in a following list. So here you can see the data sheet of a Vigos. We won't go through it too detailed, don't be scared. It's just an information for you. Please look at the datasheet at least one time before you propose it to a customer. So in there you have all the needed information, the capacity, the power, which inverter is used, the weight, the size, additional more information. And on the second part of the datasheet, you have a lot of power information. You see how it should be fused, what's the maximum reactive power needed, and such stuff. What's the maximum AC coupled island PV you can add, and what's the maximum DC coupling which is available right now. So please just take a few views into the datasheet that you are aware of all the data. If you are not, or if the datasheet is a bit too complicated written, please just give us a call and we try to explain it to you, or just write us an email at support@bluesky-energy.eu. So in here, you can see this grid disconnection. So this should display a Vigos or a cell 3050 system. We have 2 connection points for AC. AC input means a bidirectional grid connection point. And on the AC output, this is the emergency backup connection. So if you want to use the emergency backup connection, you can use the AC out connection for that. Yeah, so just a few informations about the cell. The cell itself is a complete indoor system. Temperature range is same with the Vigos. We recommend an air exchange of the installed room, and the weight is also understandable, I guess, a bit lower, a bit smaller, and the needed space is also less than with the Vigos system. The cell is available one phase from 6 kilowatt hours up to 20 kilowatt hours, and with a different power with 2 kilowatt charge or 2.4 discharge power, or if you use a higher inverter, so the 5000 multiplus 2, you can get up to 4 kilowatt on charge and discharge power. With the 3-phase systems, also this starts at 6 kilowatt hours and go up to 20 kilowatt hours, and you can order them with 6 kilowatt hour charge power or 7.2 kilowatts discharge power, or with a 12 kilowatt charge and discharge power. So this depends on the order you're ordering, on the system you're ordering. And also this system is the standard function is grid parallel as self-consumption, and emergency and off-grid is already integrated, but you need to wire it in the correct way to fulfill this function. So also inside here, I would recommend please take a look inside the datasheet before you install, before you prepare anything for your customer, just that you are aware of all the stuff needed, of the sizes, of the weight, of the maximum AC island PV coupling, which is possible, or for the maximum DC coupling. So this is what a one-phase cell 3050 will look like. Here you have the connection box, and here you have the battery modules. So this would mean this is a 10 kilowatt hour one-phase system with 4 kilowatts in power. And here, this is how a 3-phase system can look like. So you don't need to place the boxes behind each other. You can also place them in one line. So you have the second box standing on the right side of the first. And here in the bottom, you can see this 10 modules now, which gives up to 20 kilowatt hours. And here on the right side, you just see the same system, but with the added housing. So with the cell 3050 system, you will always get these plates on the outside, which are not needed especially, but which are just done for optical things. So these are always delivered. Good, so let's go through the installation schematics. System description in general. All systems are designed to work in parallel to the grid in mode self-consumption optimization. So that's the main focus of the system. So if energy goes to the grid, the exceed value will be stored or charged inside the battery. And if energy comes from the grid, the system will start discharging according to the power value of the loads. And the measured variable is the energy meter at the grid input point. So I hope we have the same understanding of grid input point. So if you look at this schematic here, on the left bottom side, we have the grid input point. So where the grid comes in, where the grid connection is. In here you see an already installed PV AC inverter. So that's like a SMA, Fronius, or SolarEdge, whatever you're used to. And we also have here a few a few load connections. So your house installation. And here we now add a Vigos system, for example. So we just connect it to the distribution panel like we would do with an inverter or a load. But what is really important that you place an energy meter directly at the grid input point. So this energy meter makes sure that the system charges and discharges with the correct power according to the exceed or to the energy coming from the grid. So that's really an important point, that this energy meter is placed directly at the grid input point. So, but we already spoke, the Vigos is also an backup or emergency power capability system. So if there is a grid failure, the Vigos can make its own mini grid. So yeah, requirement for this function is at least an a bit charged battery system. The loads which should stay active without the grid needs to be connected to the AC out connection. And the switching time into the emergency mode is below 20 milliseconds. So the SOC which should be available for that function can be changed inside the Vigos all the time. So here I now have different certifications for the disconnection, the grid disconnection switch, so which is an automated switch. For example, also for Italy, the C1011, or for UK, the G98 are certificated. If you need a certification, please contact us so that we can provide that for you. So if we just jump directly now to the schematic, we here have again the same installation of the PV, of the loads, and of the Vigos. And now you see here the AC output is also connected with loads. So if the grid is available, these loads are supplied by the PV or by the grid or by the battery. And also this loads here. So also these loads are supplied if the grid is available and PV is giving to less power. These loads will be fed by the Vigos. So, and if we now have a grid failure, the Vigos is disconnecting from the grid. So here it disconnects from the grid. So that means the AC output stays active and the loads which are connected here also stays active. And this is just a switch for service. So in case of a Vigos failure or if the inverter breaks, you can switch these loads back to the grid if needed. So just in case of a service, we recommend and switch, which you can add that you can switch these loads, distribution panel maybe back to the grid. But if the system is active, you can just keep position 1 so that this is directly connected. In the case of a grid loss, of grid failure, these systems stay active. So this is for our definition an off-grid system, or let's say an emergency backup system. But it's also possible to do a fully island system with the Vigos or a backup island system. So that means also an off-grid coupled AC PV system will synchronize to the grid of the Vigos, also of the battery inverter, and will charge the batteries or provide power to the loads. So the loads which should stay active needs to be connected to the AC out, and also the inverter which should stay active, the PV inverter, should be connected to the AC out. So how this will look like? It will look like that. So we don't connect the inverter here. We now would connect an AC PV inverter to the AC out connection. So this is, in our case, or in this example, the PV inverter is already installed. It not needs to be done like that. It's just an example or a possible installation at the customer. It's not needed like that, but it can be. But also in this case, this function, the basic function, stays the same. So first, the system always takes a look at the loads, and only if the PV provides more power than the loads needed, the battery starts charging. And it starts discharging as soon as the PV gives less than the loads need. So in case of a grid failure, we now disconnect again here. But as the Vigos is giving an own microgrid here, the PV inverter has a grid where he can synchronize and connect. So then he will supply the loads and he will charge the batteries. The only thing is, if the grid failure is coming at midnight and the battery is already completely empty at, like for example, 4 a.m., the PV inverter has no microgrid where he can connect to. So for that case, you would need a DC coupling PV, which is also black start capable. We will come to that in the slide after the next one. So if the PV system is too big, it could also be that you have an installation like this. So this is a PV inverter which fulfills the maximum power available from the Vigos. And in here you can choose whatever size of PV inverter you want to. So also, but here the function stays the same. But yeah, if you have this grid failure in midnight, the battery is already empty at 4, this will not give you an off-grid functionality. So for that, you need a DC coupling, so which can be displayed like that. So that this DC-DC chargers are directly connected inside the system. And if a grid is available, they work like a PV inverter. So they supply the loads. But if a grid failure is active, these PV inverters supply only the AC out loads. But what they also do, even if you have a grid failure at midnight, and even if the batteries are completely drained at 4 a.m. in the morning, these battery DC-DC chargers will start as soon the PV panels get sun. So, and as soon they start, they will charge up the battery to a specific point. And as soon the batteries have reached their start voltage, you will get an AC out voltage again. So this is what we call black start. So starting without any additional grid. So that means, you can just combine all the functions together, do a DC coupling for black start, do the AC coupling of the PV for a higher PV power, and do, if the customer has more PV available, you can just connect the additional PV here. And please, just recommendation for service cases, please add this switch, so 102 switch, where you can maybe, in case of a service, connect these loads back directly to the grid. Or what you can also do, just connect the whole house on the AC out. It's possible, but please always be aware of the maximum amps which you are giving or driving here through this AC out to AC in, or AC in to AC out transfer current. So this is listed inside the datasheet. So the different system sizes has the different transfer currents available. So please take a look inside there to not exceed the maximum current on the outside. But please don't get confused. This is the standard installation of a system. The function will always stay the same, so always stay like this. The main focus of the system is give the loads as much sustainable energy as possible. So first, provide them with the PV and only charge the battery if you have exceed energy going to the grid. And if the PV is gone, supply the loads via the battery. Good, so far to the schematics, we now go through the assembling and mounting of a Vigos. So the shipping is done with an overpackaging. You will get, these are already shippable with the housing they have. You can transport them with a forklift, for example. The battery modules, so the carbon cap modules, 2 kWh, are delivered in an extra packaging. Please be aware of that. Please always check on transport damages when you receive something and note the damages on delivery note and make pictures. Storage until installation, please store it inside, safe from water and sun. I mean, yeah, the Vigos is an outdoor system. I'm totally with you, but just for storage, please do it inside and also between these temperature ranges. For the mounting location, outside is possible for Vigos. Cell 3015 is inside. Please be aware of the protected location, so protected from the sun for the Vigos, and the temperature. Air humidity can be up to 95%. And if you place it inside, please make sure that you have a natural air exchange circulation of 0.5 square meters per hour per installed kilowatt hour. And the underground needs to be able to hold the weight from the datasheet, and an additional basement fundament is recommended. So what I mean with the basement and fundament is that you add some concrete below the Vigos itself. So we also have plans made for that, so which you can also find on our partner portal. you can see here, this is the main connection box. So the concrete, the fundament for the connection box, this would be a fundament for the battery module. So you also have drawings available for that. We just recommend do it, that the Vigos is really placed and tightened really good to the ground. So this is an example for the connection box and 2 battery modules. So as soon as you mount the system, just place the main connection box, which looks like that on the outside, and the battery modules can be placed on the right or on the left of the connection box. So you can choose that on yourself. As soon as you've placed it, place them, open the boxes. So this can be done by pulling the door here towards you, and then pull up or lift up this whole door to the top. So first pull it to you and then give it a push up so that you can remove the door from the system, and then you can have access into it. So as soon as you've done that, you can now here see the open battery box. You can also unpack the carbo cap modules, which are packaged like that, and place it inside the battery module. So remove this module here. Please always work with 2 people, it's recommended, and just lift it and add it into the battery module. So just place them everything inside. So as you can see here, the slides, which provides a good slide inside. So the next foil, I will just give you a few seconds that you can imagine how a fully installed system looks like. All right, so that's how a 48 kilowatt hour system can look like. So if you have any questions, please also just write them inside the Q&A tool if you want. Good, so now we just directly go to the electrical installation of the Vigos itself. So first we'll go through the cabling, which you can see inside here. So the whole connection box is already pre-cabled, so pre-wired, and you just need to add your AC cabling, your energy meter cabling, and what you also need to do is install the DC cables from the battery modules to the connection box. So on the bottom here, I hope you can see here this small gaps. So you can break out this sheet also on this side, and then you will have cables which you can connect from the bottom of the housing to the other side. So this is the whole DC connections you have to do for plus and minus. And also one communication cable needs to be connected from the connection box to the battery module. So if you do external cabling, please always check the cables and be sure that all components are still switched off and no voltage is measurable on any wire. Please always make that sure before connecting anything. So the AC input looks like that. So this is the connection point for you, where you can add the 3-phase system. Please always pay attention of the needed rotation field to the right. So that means the phase following needs to be L1, L2, L3 in this direction, so that you have, and let me show it to you in the correct way inside the camera. So the phase needs to spin to the right. Hope that is understandable. And here you have the connection points for L1, L2, L3, here for the neutral wire, and here for the ground wire or earth wire. I don't know what definition you prefer. So that's the left side. You have AC in. Yeah, they are also displayed or labeled on the system itself. So, and the AC out connection is on the right side of the AC connection panel. Please always also here be aware that the Vigos is giving out a right spin on the rotation field. So L1, L2, and L3 are spinning in the right direction, so direction to the right. So, and after that, you can also do the energy meter cabling. So the communication is done via RS485 from the EMS to the energy meter. So that's really an important connection you have to do. The energy meter itself is delivered already pre-configured and only needs to be switched on or needs to be cabled. The energy meter is usable for up to 65 amps inside cell 3050 system, and for the Vigos system, you will receive an energy meter with current ratio transformers. So the transformers itself are not part of delivery, but the input current is 5 amps. So the input current of the energy meter for transformers is 5 amps, but please organize the transformers itself on yourself. So if you have, for example, like 200 amps input current, organize a transformer with a 200 amps input current and 5 amps output current. And if you need more or different energy meters, please order them in the correct way so they can be ordered additionally ordered separately. So if you need more of them or a different one, please talk to us or to your sales contact person that you will receive the correct needed energy meter. So the energy meter needs to be placed at the grid input point or output point, however you want to call it. But that's really important that the system is able to measure all the income power and the outcome power. And also the measurement direction is really important, so that you connect the grid to pin 1 and you connect your distribution panel to number pin 4. So you can see in here, grid pin 1 and distribution panel grid pin 4. The communication can be done like that or needs to be done like that. On the energy meter, you have the pins 9 and 8, and these needs to be connected to the EMS plus 1, pin 1 and 2. So this is a 3-port orange plug, and which you can also remove, and then connect your cables. Recommend and Cat 6 or 7, so a standard communication cable, to do that communication cabling. And what is also very important, the last device of an RS485 connection needs to have an end terminal. And this end terminal is applied by adding a wire. So really it's only a wire, a short wire from pin 7 to pin 9. So, or please just follow only the instruction which you receive with the system. So, and also at the Vigos, you have a network communication input point, so which is placed here. So on the right bottom part of the system. So inside the connection box here, you have the incoming network router, and here you have a so-called WAN port where you can connect the communication cable, the network cable of the customer to ensure the system is online, and also to ensure that we can give you support if needed. So when you start up a system, when you commission it, please always test the whole thing and for good and correct mounting. So the AC cabling, AC in, AC out, and earth wire connection is really important. So all the connections you have done here on the AC panel, please just make sure they are done in a good way. Good, test before switching on. So we just recommend when you switch on the AC in cabling, you can already measure the rotation field, so which needs to look into the right. I hope this is an understandable definition. So as soon as you've done that, you can activate each CarboCap module. So they don't give power or voltage from themselves. They need to be activated separately. So first you just place the fuses inside the module. They are part of the shipment, and then LEDs start to flash. You just need to wait 2 seconds, and then you can start the module by changing the configuration of the dip switch. So details you can also find in the manual. I will just give you a picture. So this is the top view or the front view of the module. And here you just place here there's 2 fuses. And then you have here the small switch, which needs to be placed to the correct numbers or letters. So 00 means off. And for example, F and F is the standard on function, but that you will read inside the manual. So the inverter also needs to be plugged on. There is a switch on the bottom of the inverter. Please always switch on all the inverters placed inside the system. The system always starts automatically and synchronizes also to the mains, so if the grid is acceptable. And the start duration is approximately 10 to 60 seconds, depending on the grid performance. So, and as soon this is done, the system already synchronizes and works already. So here you can see where the switch is placed of the inverter. So it's a bit hidden, unfortunately, but if you have found it once, you will find it all the time again. So, and now as soon as you have started the inverter and the battery modules, you can already connect to the interface. So there is no display available right now with the system. The visualization can be accessed via an remote console or a web interface, and this web interface can be opened with 3 different ways. So if you connect directly to the switch inside the Vigos system, you can just open up this IP address, and then you will get access to the web interface. Or you can also connect via the internet. Unfortunately, the address, the link is not finished for the Vigos system, so I only have the links for the GreenRock system inside the presentation so far. But you can try them already if you want. They will look more or less completely the same, just the colors will be a bit different. So live.mygreenrock.eu is access to the live view, and mygreenrock.eu is the access to the portal right now. So these are just some different ways how you can connect. And when you connect via the web, so we're live.mygreenrock.eu, you need a serial number and an unlock key. And both values are placed on the Vigos inside the EMS or onside the EMS. So you need to open the housing, and then you have a label on the Vigos EMS where you can see the serial number and the unlock key. And then, the visualization will look something like that. Not in the same way, but this is the system which we are running now for our GreenRock systems. I hope you have heard from them or have seen something from them. So the visualization of the Vigos will look in the same way like we have here, or in a comparable way. So, and if the inverter and the grid energy meter are active, the system will already begin with the optimization of the self-consumption. So as soon there would go energy into the grid, as soon as there would go energy into the grid, from the PV, the battery will start charging. And if there would come energy from the grid, the battery starts discharging, so that the grid point stays at 0. So that's the main focus of the system. So if you do a startup of a Vigos, please first always check all the connections, switch on the AC in connection, mount the battery fuses and holders, and start the carbo cap modules, switch on the inverter and wait until grid synchronization is done, start the EMS visualization via the IP address and check for the energy meter communication. Then if you have connected, you can also connect the AC outloads, then sign in the system to the portal and fill out the startup protocol and make pictures. And you also can add the covers again after you've done all the installations. With system, you also get a sheet which is called frequently asked questions during startup. So in there you see the questions and also the answers, and you will also see our support hotline number, which is available European middle time from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. from Monday to Thursday, and on Friday we are available from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So that's European middle time where we are available right now. Good. So after the startup, please also fill out the startup protocol and also train the customer during this protocol. The protocol also needs to be sent to BlueSky, sales at bluesky-energy.eu. And after an internal approval, we give you the warranty. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it's also going to be 10 years for Vigos. So sorry if it is the same number. So reworks on a system without our permission has loss of warranty and CE mark as a result. So please be aware of that. And if you're installing the first system, we are happy to support you, but please, in the best way, give us information 2-3 days before you are doing that, so that we can prepare for the time you reserve, and we have an engineer available for you. So yeah, the EMS is placed on the right bottom side when you look from the front. And yeah, this is the IP address where you can access it. The live view. So now you will more or less see the slides named with my GreenRock, so because of the GreenRock system, but the Vigos will have more or less the same letters or same functions. So it's just, sorry for the not fully colored and named protocols here, but it will be more or less really completely the same. Good. So these are the different accessible things. Also here, this is where, for example, when you start the browser with a live.mygreenrock.eu, you will get to this login screen. Then you can add serial number and unlock key of your system. You can do that worldwide. So, and then you will get directly to the EMS live view. So there you can connect and see everywhere in the world what your system is doing. You can do a few adjusts in the settings menu. So for example, how many capacity should be stored for backup capability. So also that is, for example, possible. And the energy management system also enable a few opportunities. So you will see rough live data, but you can also see really detailed historical data. So these are two different access. One is the live view and one is the portal. So inside the portal, you have these things available. You can also try it when you go to mygreenrock.eu and fill in the email address, demo@bluesky-energy.eu, and with the password demo. So with this data, you can already take a look inside the portal if you want. So the portal looks like that. You have different things available. You here see how many energy you have created on yourself. You see fit in to compared to energy taken from the grid. So really a lot of graphs you can see. You will be able to see PV production values. So if you have added a PV inverter to the system, to the visualization, you find a lot of information here. And you can even see the PV inverters individually. So if you have more inverters connected, PV inverters, you can also look at them separately. Or you can start up the data collection. So in there, you can choose on yourself which data file you would like to compare on a specific time frame. So you can just place it on yourself and choose it on yourself. So and these are just a few different inverter brands which are connectable to the system. If you have a special one, please ask us if they are connectable to the system directly. It will function with all inverters, so that I can say, but the visualization only works with most of them, but not all of them. I just received the question if I can go back to the demo again. Sure. So please open the site mygreenrock.eu, and then you can use demo@bluesky-energy.eu with a password, and please look at the great capital, so the capital D here. So maybe Chris, I hope I'm allowed, please just write something in when you're finished. And you will also receive this presentation as in a PDF form after we are finished. So it should be done in the next days. All right, thank you. So we will go back to the brands. So as said, it will work with any inverter brand, but the visualization for that you need a specific or a defined one to also visualize the power generated from the PV inverter. All right, so do you have any questions from your side regarding the Vigos or the Cell 3050 system? We also have instructions which we are sending with the systems. We have data sheets available for the Vigos system and the data sheets for a cell are still in preparation because yeah, it's a really, really new system right now. And both systems are available in April or May next year. So that's the delivery time already, because we already have a lot of orders, most of them in Austria and Germany right now. But I mean, that's also our main market where we focus right now. So if you don't have questions right now, you can also place them afterwards at your sales contact person or at support@bluesky-energy.eu if they're technical related. And if not, yeah, thank you for being part of the first Vigos English webinar. Thanks for joining. Please stay healthy. And yeah, would be great to hear one of you sometime, or I can help at instructions or installations. So yeah, again, thank you for being part of it. All the best and have a good day. Thank you.